As well as the city council candidates. We are missing one. Joe Peterson from the 2nd Ward is not able to be with us here today. The other candidates are you can see their name tags up in front here. That tells who they are. Tom Koontz and John Spatenko running for mayor. The at-large candidates, Les Abraham, Ben Flimke. The 2nd Ward candidate, again, Joe Peterson is not with us, but Greg Schultz is here. Then in the 4th Ward, the 3 candidates, Shannon Border, Marlene Nelson, and Kevin Rainey. The rules, ladies and gentlemen, the rules are as follows. No candidate has been provided the questions in advance. Candidates, you will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then candidates will alternate response to each question, and each question you will have 1 minute to answer that question. Our timer today, as usual, is Sharon West. When you have 30 seconds left, Sharon will hold up a yellow card indicating to you that you have 30 seconds left, and when your time has been completed, Sharon will hold up a red card indicating that you have no time left. And I am no Jim Lair, I will cut you off. Just ask any of the school board candidates last week. So with that in mind, at the very end of the forum today, you will be allowed a 2-minute closing statement. So with that in mind, we will begin with the opening statement, and we will turn to the mayor, Tom Koontz.
Thank you. Oops.
You're on.
Is it on? Okay. Thank you to Rotary, the Old Town People's Press, and the Old Town Chamber for holding this forum. It's a great venue for us to be able to get our information out. And Jeffrey, thanks for hosting that. I'm Tom Koontz, current mayor of the great city of Owatonna. Married to a wonderful woman named Shelby. Got 3 kids and 5 grandkids. I'm a lifelong resident. I graduated in '63. Spent 8 years in the United States Air Force, came back and went to work for the Owatonna Public Utilities. During that time at the Owatonna Utilities, it gave me the opportunity to end my career as general manager. And being general manager, you really get involved in the community. You get to meet the industrial base, the CEOs, and make those connections that are necessary for you to represent the city as a good job in Owatonna. I've also had the privilege of being able to work at the state level and at the federal level, which is again benefits when you need help from the state and federal level. So it is an opportunity to try and give you 4 more years as mayor of the city of Owatonna.
Thank you. Mr. Spatenko.
John Spatenko, lifelong resident, born here, raised in Claremont, went to school in Ellenville, graduated, active at church, on the cemetery board, and well, nobody else running for mayor, so why can't it be me? So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham.
Thank you. Les Abraham, councilman for at-large candidate. I was not born in Owatonna, but I've lived here most of my life and have been a big supporter of this community from the beginning. You've got my resume or background in the brochure, and I'm guaranteed to be one of the biggest supporters of the city of Owatonna in whatever capacity that I can.
Thank you. Mr. Flimke.
Hello, my name is Ben Flemke. I'm running for Owatonna City Council at large against Les here. I'm a class of 2000 OHS grad. I'm a local small business owner. I'm married to Nikki Flemke. I've got a daughter named Ava who is 6 years old and a son, Max, who is 4. Like I said, I'm a local small business owner, and I would like to use my skills and background in small business to kind of bring a new approach to the budget, with a business kind of an approach. I think we need to have some fresh ways to look at local issues. We need to attract new business, to increase tax base and new jobs, and I'm not afraid to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz, why don't we have you use the microphone right in front of you? And Mr. Schultz.
now? No?
No.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. There you go. Okay, we're on. Good afternoon. My name is Greg Schultz, and I'm running for election to the Owatonna City Council 2nd Ward. I was appointed to the council to represent the 2nd Ward in 2011 following the resignation of John Moore. I was selected from 9 applicants to serve the remainder of that term because of my long-term commitment to Owatonna. It's been a fast year of getting up to speed on the operations of the city. An Owatonna native, I returned to Owatonna in 1978 with degrees in finance and marketing from Mankato State University. I worked in the banking industry for over the next 10 years before taking over the family business as president of Schultz Homes. Schultz Homes is in the construction, real estate, and land development business. My wife Shirley and I have 3 children, Grant and his wife Julie. Charlie was a salesman for Fastenal. My daughter Erica was a PhD candidate in organic chemistry, and 3 wonderful grandchildren. In 2009, my son Grant and I purchased the Owatonna landmark Costa's Candies and Restaurant, which Grant operates in downtown Owatonna. My priorities for this coming years are budget transparency while providing efficient government for the needs and services required by the citizens. Economic development to keep Owatonna a thriving regional player in southeast Minnesota, and developing a good long-range plan for the city. The city's council's job is to set policy, guide the city into the future, not to micromanage the staff. My years of business experience in times of expansion and recession have given me the many tools necessary to accomplish what I see as important goals for the city. I know I brought a new and appreciated business owner perspective to the council and want to continue that for a better Owatonna tomorrow. I've been looking forward to this event today as I love meeting and hearing from the citizens of Owatonna. I have the good fortune to be out and about in the community, listening to the wants and needs of the citizenry. I enjoy hearing their concerns and ideas on how to make Owatonna a better place to work and live. It's quite obvious to me that the people care about Owatonna, and I want to be a part of the process that makes Owatonna the best it can be.
Boy, you got right under the wire. Mr. Porter.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here today. I am Shannon Borner, running for election in the 4th Ward. I do live up in the southeast. Born and raised here 32 years ago at the old hospital, which will now be your Fairway Foods up in that area. Currently 11 years married to my wife Betty, who's been at Jostens for about 11 years here locally. We do have 3 boys together. Their ages are 11, 8, and 6. In the midst of those 3, we spend a lot of time in the area parks. We spend a lot of time with the area Special Olympics. We spend a lot of time in the therapeutic recreation area. I have one son who likes to spend a lot of time in the Owatonna Arts area and the Owatonna Arts Center. And the youngest will be involved in the Owatonna Wrestling Association, along with the Owatonna Park and Rec programs that they put on. So, started my law enforcement career about 10 years ago with the city of Owatonna as a community service officer, doing some bike patrol, and doing some routine assisting the license officers, and also doing some security at the local library there. All very educational, meeting some of the city people, back who they were back then. After a few years of that, I did take a full-time license position with Dodge County, where I've been for 8 years. I am also the Assistant Chief of Police in the city of West Concord. And with the Dodge County Sheriff's Office, I spend time on routine patrol as well as teaching the 5th grade dare classes in the Triton and Hayfield areas, just to our east here. I also spend time on overseeing the Take It to the Box drug.
Thank you, Mr. Borner. Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
Is this on? Yeah, it is. No doubt about it. I don't have any kind of scripted answers, but I have kissed the Blarney Stone in Ireland, so let's hope that I can fill my 2 minutes, and I never have failed before. It's amazing. I can see all of you clear to the back of the room. I just went through 2 cataract surgeries, and I would recommend Dr. Hessel to anyone. He did a wonderful job. Anyway, it's been my desire to serve my community for over 20 years. I saw it taking a direction that I really didn't like. I thought, we're spending ourselves into a lot of debt, and I just didn't like that. I always think you're better off if you have some money in reserve. And I feel as though you should have your powder high and dry, especially now with the economy such as it is, but we're dug in nice and deep. So I think we're gonna have to really work some austerity measures, and I think when people retire, maybe we won't replace some, we'll let it go with attrition. And even though we just recently gave a 1% raise to, I think it was the police and fire department, it doesn't sound like a lot, but I think when we've got people working for the city that make over 100,000 base pay a year, we need to have some salary caps. We need to have some points at where we say, you know, other than the cost of living adjustment, you can't go any higher. My sister works for the state of Minnesota, and they have steps, and they go up in steps, and when they hit the top of their step, they don't get another raise unless it's a cost of living. So I think we're gonna have to look at some things here, because I think we're on an unsustainable course, and that's where I'm coming from. I believe in keeping the core services nice and strong, but I think we're gonna have to look at new ways with new eyes and a new way of doing things, and I've got the new eyes, I can tell you, I can see even people in the back of the room.
Thank you. Mr. Rainey?
Hi, I'm Kevin Rainey, and I am running for 4th Ward. First, I'd like to thank the Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, and I'm not going to do a Mark Sebring. I'll thank the People's Press as well for putting this on today. I've lived in Owatonna since 1981. I've worked for a small retailer, Wayne Starman, on up to a corporation of Cashwise. I've been married to my wife Monica for 26 years. Together we have a child, Jake. He is a media consultant with Yellow Book, and our daughter Michaela is a freshman at Winona State. I've been been involved in the community since 1981. I have been in the Owatonna Knights of Columbus for many years. I served as its Grand Knight in 1999. In 2005, I was nominated and selected as its Knight of the Year. I took over for Bill Thompson back here on the Park Board 10 years ago when he was elected to City Council. And I have been voted as president the last 8 years. Throughout that time, we have worked closely with City Council. I've represented the board on many occasions on study sessions. We have a great community. There are a lot of good, positive things that are happening in our community. I am running so that we can continue to keep Owatonna strong and vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rainey. And Mr. Rainey, keep that microphone right in your hand, because we're going to start the first question with you. And I would remind the candidates that you will have 1 minute for each answer for the questions. The first question, Mr. Rainey, and this will be a question for all of you. If elected, how will your leadership impact the people who live in Owatonna? Mr. Rainey.
I'll impact it by making sure that I understand the question at hand when it comes before the City Council. I'll analyze the problem, take the proper time to make sure that I understand it, so when it comes time for a vote, I will make as educated a decision on that vote as I can, making certain that the vote is a representative of what the city of Owatonna, what the citizens expect.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
I realize the city council gets a lot of requests for a lot of things, and I think it's so much easier not to say no, but I think sometimes you have to say no. And I'm the person that even if I'm 1 against 7, I'll still be able to stand up and say, no, it doesn't work. I think we have to ask ourselves before each decision, well, how is this going to affect all of our taxpayers? And a lot of people are not able to keep up. I work with a side of town that most of you are unfamiliar with. Hospitality House, I see our guys struggling. They're working, but they don't make enough to put a roof over their head and food on the table and a bed. So I see things in a little different view than a lot of you, but I would ask if this is going to be something we can afford. Is it something we really need? And I can tell the difference between need and want. I really know what it is. So I really feel like I'm going to bring a very conservative approach to things. And if that doesn't sound good to you, then I'm not the candidate you want to vote for, but I definitely want to hold the line for everybody
Thank
here in
you.
town.
Thank you very much. Mr. Borner?
Here's the way I see it. I think as an elected fourth ward representative, it would be my responsibility to take the information, the questions that arise in the city council, and the information brought forth to them. I think it's my responsibility, or that person's responsibility, to take that information out to your ward specifically and see how it affects them, see what the people's thoughts are. We just can't forget they're the ones that elected you and are putting you there for a reason. Get their thoughts, talk to them about it, bring that information back to council, and make the best decision from there.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz?
Well, I think I bring some needed decision-making skills to the council. I maybe look at the city a little differently than some of the other people. I think we need to get out there and make our community grow. If we get our community to grow, and that will increase the tax base, and that actually will help reduce taxes and keep the government in check. I think that brings a lot to, I bring a lot to the city in that regard. It is important to listen to the people and do the best you can to answer them, and make sure that, I guess that's all, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Flemke?
I guess I kind of agree with everybody else. I do think we need to ask questions, get opinions from, the citizens of Owatonna, and obviously business owners, just to kind of get a feel for what the people actually want in town, and kind of go from there and make sure that everybody's involved in the decision-making process.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham?
Thank you. Looking at the question is how has my leadership affected the
Jeffrey,
community?
let's hold on a sec, that mic's not working, let's see if we can. Is there another mic, can you hand it?
Probably should say, how has my leadership affected the community? I've been on the council for many years already. I am the president of the council at this point, and I will continue to do what I've been doing, is working with the public. The people, when they have a concern or a request, I will do what I can to make their request be heard and hopefully become successful. One of the things that we have talked about is getting new business into town. One of the things that we have had a success with is Fairway Foods coming, getting Highway 14 continued to Waseca. Those are things that I will continue to work with and get Highway 14 to Dodge Center completed also.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka?
Yes, I'm gonna work with the people. I wanna work for the people, because I am one of them. I have the same daily struggles as everybody else. I had to, have a 2-year work ethic to get my own home. I don't know if that applies to everybody else living here, but we need to change that. And like I said, I am one of the people here, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coons?
In reality, each and every one of you on the audience are our boss. You pay taxes, and we are in charge of the tax money that comes in. We need to make sure that we spend that tax money in a wise and efficient manner. All I can say is that if you look at the 2013 proposed budget, it is about equal to what we had in 2007. So I got to credit staff and everybody for keeping budgets in line. We are doing that through attrition and not replacing the entire employees, but we're also doing that through the lean process. The other thing that I speak well of is that we have done a great job of bringing a new industry into our community. Right down the road, Chart Industry is employing 100 employees. They're busting at the seams and looking at expansion. They will continue to try and bring industry into our community.
Thank you. Candidates, we are going to jump around a little bit just in order to keep the candidates with those who they are running against. So, Mr. Schultz will begin the next question with you. The next question is, what measurable goals do you have for council if elected?
But measurable goals. Well, first off would be on the budget. We have a finite number there, we know what the number is, we have to work to keep it within that bounds. We're doing some great things in that regard. I'd like to keep the budget as efficient as possible. As the mayor stated, we've started the lean process and went through the Economic Development and Building Inspection Department and worked wonderfully. There are some great savings there, and I want to see that program continued into the other ones. Some other measurable things are seeing to get Highway 14 done. I think that is the most important thing. We got it done to the west, now is the time to keep the pressure on to get it done to the east. And we really need to work on economic development. We have a good, vibrant city. We have a chamber that's active, they're 5-star accredited. We really need to work together and get more industry into Owatonna, and that would be a very measurable thing.
Thank you. Mr. Flemke?
I think, I believe that, we need to look at everything on a cost and benefit analysis, Not necessarily always, the cheapest, easiest way, but more long-term solutions for everything. Obviously, I think that the city budget needs to be went through with a little bit finer tooth comb. I do think the department heads know their departments very well, but obviously I think that we could improve there as well. So,
Thank you. Mr. Abraham?
Well, I hate to say and try to keep defending what we've been doing, but we've had a lot of success in getting businesses to come to Owatonna. We've had success in getting the Highway 14 done to a certain point. One of the things that we continue to do is we look at the budgets every year. We try to keep them as lean as possible. We look at many ways to improve in what we've done. We look at what we have for reserve, which are at about $35 million at this point we have in reserve, and we only have a debt of about $19.3 million. So are we doing good? Yes, we're doing very good, and we will continue to do that if I am elected.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka?
Yes, sir.
Again, the question, if elected, what measurable goals do you have for the council if elected?
Well, my main goal is I want to dig in and see what happened with the racetrack. We got a lot of income sitting right there in front of us, and why we're not using it, I have no idea. But we need to look into that and see, because it's moved away from us and somebody else is getting something that we should be getting, because it's already right here in front of us. So we don't have to add nothing, don't have to take anything away. It's already right here, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coons?
I think one of the main goals, if elected, you're representing a certain area of your community, and so you need to be involved with that area. You need to listen to what those people have to say. You need to bring those ideas to the city council. You need to make sure that you're in attendance and attend the meetings. I think it takes about 87 volunteers through all the different committees that we have, the airport commission, park and rec and everything. Be involved in those committees, understand what's going on in your community. But most of all, sell your community to the people around and to our neighbors.
Thank you. Mr. Rainey?
Obviously, budget. We need to continue to make sure that that budget is serving its purpose. We need to bring our debt service down. We're doing a good job. We've brought it down some. We need to continue to bring that down. Our department heads, it's extremely important that they become fiscal managers. Okay? We can't just go into a new budget year and not have ideas on how to drop budget. It's important that they fulfill their obligation and try to bring the budget down. The other thing is the local cable contract. That's due up at the end of 2013. We need to start looking now to see what the best possible way is to carry that on. If it's more competition, if we can negotiate a better price so our citizens have lower cable, we can't wait until next October to get that done. We need to really study
Thank you,
that.
sir. Thank you. Mrs. Nelson?
I really liked what Kevin just said, and I could mirror all of his comments. I agree with them totally. I feel though, I bring a different perspective. A lot of people like their tax increment financing and their abatements and Job Z. And I feel like in a capitalist society, that's like government picking winners over losers. And I don't think these jobs are paying that well, and when we give them a subsidy, say like on this new Fairway deal, 25 years of subsidy. That bothers me because these jobs are gonna cost us greatly. But it was one way for the city to get rid of an empty building, so I think that's probably why they jumped on it. But I just feel like in order to be fair to every business owner, we need to try to treat them all equally. And we are a capitalist country, and I think we need to let capitalism reign free and work. So anyway, I bring a different perspective than most people. Most people think economic development means that you bring somebody in here and give them a handout. I just don't think that works.
Thank you. Mr. Borner?
Well, frustratingly enough, I agree with most of the table here. I do think that there are some budget issues. I do think it's time to step back and see where things can be cut. But at the same time, I think there's places where there's probably more money needed. Specifically speaking, when you look at maybe your core services, is there something more that needs to be done there? Does money need to be taken from one and given to the other? And there again, I think the money issue always comes up, and money always comes down to the growth in the community. The bigger your community in regards to business and residency, I think the more taxes the base tax you're gonna bring in, and therein you get to spend more money, and you should dole it out where it needs to be doled out.
Thank you. I would remind the audience, if you have questions that you would like asked, to please write them down and hold them up, and Brad will pick them up and get them to us. So if you do have questions, please do not hesitate to write them down. Mr. Abraham, I believe we're going to start this question with you. And since many of the candidates here spoke about the budget, let's talk a little bit about the budget. During the current economic downturn, city governments are experiencing budget pressures that impact different departments. What experience and expertise do you have that will allow you to keep budgetary and non-mandated service concerns in balance? Mr. Abraham.
Thank you. Good, very good. Just looking at what we've done in the past, look at what we've got. Number one is that you can only spend as much as what you get. We set a budget based on what our needs are, and we try to keep that very much in check. We actually, in many cases, have decreased our budget over the years. Again, as the mayor had said, in 2007 is where we're at today. That's quite a challenge when you have the needs of the people. Again, the employees do deserve to get something for the jobs that they're doing, and it's very hard to say no to them. And in the last few years, we've done that. We've actually had to say no, and we are now doing a very good job with it.
Thank you. Mr. Flimke.
You know, I definitely agree that, you know, we do need to make cuts. I think we need to look towards the future though instead of the past. You know, continue to look at new innovative ways of you know, doing, I guess, more with less, like everybody else has to do with their own personal budgets. You know, most people aren't getting raises, even though costs continue to go up. So, you know, we just need to, you know, look at different ways of continuing to do the same things, obviously on less.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz.
What do I bring to the budget process? I bring a lot. And any of you know I'm in the land development business and the construction business. Well, that's a long-term business. When you do a land development project, you might start 10 years out. And you have to work on a budget to where you're going to see it to be in a number of years. And you have to constantly change that to match the times. And I think we've been in some tough times right now, and it's our job as a city council to mold that budget to meet the times. Just like Marlene says, we're in tough times, we might have to cut it back. For good times, maybe we can increase it. I think I bring a lot of background knowledge in budget making and long-term planning to really help the city go in the right direction.
Thank you. Mr. Borner?
Well, I think Ben hit it on the head for me. I think innovative ways is a good way to look at things. The same with less. You take a look at what you have, you take a look at where it needs to be, and you try to put it there. If the money's not there, that's where you need to start trying to find it. And again, I'll take you back to the business growth, the residency growth, just the tax base in general is larger at that point, and budget becomes less of a topic when you've got something like that.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson?
I look at this from a whole worldwide perspective, and I think I do a lot of reading, and I don't read lightweight material. And I feel like what's going on in Europe is going to bounce back across in this country, and a lot of their problems did start in this country when we sold them the housing bubble derivatives. And we haven't seen the bottom of our own housing market here. We've got a lot of adjustable rate mortgages about to reset, and there'll be more people losing their homes. And I look at this year's drought, and I see people are having to pay more and more at the grocery store. We've got to do everything in our power to hold this budget down and keep it manageable, because we've got a lot of people out here who don't have high 5- and 6-figure incomes, and they're hurting. And we need to do everything we can for our entire community, not just for a few.
Thank you. Mr. Rainey?
Like any other company, the largest portion of the city budget is in personnel. That being said, once again, I would expect that our department heads, while they're given goals every year, I think they should also be given expectations. As true fiscal managers, they need to meet those expectations. And if they're not meeting those expectations, then we need to really look at what happened, how they did not get that done. Personal responsibility in that regard, making sure if they know they're being watched, they will bring those numbers down.
Thank you. Mr. Coons?
As general manager of the Old Town Public Utilities, I had to make sure that the budgets and rates stayed in line to be competitive with the utility industries. I bring that same dedication to the city. Over the past 9 years, we have seen our levy increases decrease. Back in 2002, 2005, they were up in the teens to percentage of levy increases. Over the last couple of years, with the economy and everything going down, we have kept those levy increases either at a negative number or like 1 or 2%. So we are committed to ensure that your tax dollars are spent wisely. We will continue to review them through the lean process and hold our managers responsible for their budget process.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka?
Yeah, we do have to go with less and less and dish out more and more. And one of the ways I've seen is we got an alternative school, and they're given no homework because they won't do it anyway, and there's they do all the work as a classroom, so it's giving them a diploma, which it's not going to help them when they get out of school and get into the workforce. And then they get a 4-day work week, and that wasn't fair to the rest of us. We had to go to school 5 days a week, and it sends the wrong message at home that there's going to be siblings at home sitting there going, hey, wait a minute, what can I give to that class? I can get a free diploma out of this. So there is a lot of cuts all over. If you just look in front of your nose, it's right there. So thank you.
Thank you. And actually, we'll begin with the mayor, again, on this one, the mayoral candidates. And the question, we are now beginning some questions to bring you some questions that have come from our audience. And the first question, Mr. Kuntz, goes to you. How do you feel about charging a usage fee for the Owatonna trails on a yearly or daily basis? Mr. Kuntz.
I would probably not support that. We pay for the trails within our tax base. It's part of the Park and Rec Department, so as we pay taxes, I think we need to maintain them through our tax base and not a usage fee.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka, same question.
That is a very bad idea. If you got to pay to do something, you ain't gonna do it. And if it's there, use it. And so, yeah, it's a very bad idea.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham?
I agree. It's not a very good idea at all, because if you do that, you start charging for something, somebody's got to be there to collect it. That means you have to hire somebody else to do another job that didn't need to be done to begin with.
Thank you. Mr. Flemke?
I guess I won't break the record here. I agree. I think charging for use of the trails is a bad idea.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz?
I'll be a broken record, I agree, charging for the trails would not be the proper thing to do. It's one of the great amenities of our city. And it's the reason some people want to live here, to be able to use those trails. And it's just a very important thing, and we need to get as many people out there to use it as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Borner?
I again will not break that record. I would disagree with that at this point. If you look at it this way, you paid your property taxes, so you paid for it once, why would you need to pay for it again?
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson?
I can't even imagine how you could go about charging for using trails. Like Les said, you'd have to have somebody sitting there to collect a user fee, and we have miles and miles of trails. But I would like to say on the subject of trails, I think we have enough, because they all require maintenance, and eventually you have to go in and overlay those, and when there's grooming, sometimes I think the trails takes precedence over our streets. And I don't think that should be. And in the wintertime, I don't even know why you clear snow off the trail, because there's cross-country skiers that would probably like it left there.
Thank you. Mr. Rainey?
I'll agree with everyone up here. At best, it would be an extremely difficult task to charge, and the money that you would take in would cost you more money in the end to pay someone to be at the trail and charge. So it'd be a charge that would be more harm than good.
Thank you. Mr. Rainey, I believe we'll begin the next question with you. The question, actually we're going to combine a couple of questions, both dealing with local government aid. Local government aid from the state has been cut, but rather than make the cuts to the budget, the city has raised taxes. Do you agree or disagree with this approach? And would you support designing a contingency budget without local government aid? Mr. Rainey?
Well, in 2010, halfway through the year, we were informed that our $4.8 million LGA was cut to 2.6. And the next year it was the same. It was dropped in half. We had to go on the fly and make the cuts. We need to make sure that in the future we keep our budgets such that if we do get the cuts in LGA, we can react in a timely manner. When LGA cuts are made, that's simply because the state doesn't have money. That's telling us that times are tough. Raising property taxes to make up for that is not the answer. Rather, you have to go back, look at budgets, make the determination of how you can make cuts while not getting into the core safety services and continue to have the city be vibrant.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson?
I think LGA is a nice bonus, but never, never factor that into your budget. If you get it, wonderful, use it wisely, but don't expect that it will always be there. And as broke as the state is, I wonder if we aren't seeing a total end to LGA, so let's learn not to count on that as a revenue stream. What I find is that the more revenue streams the city has, the more it will go right up to the max. And I think we have to stop that mentality. I don't think we can always look at that as a way of raising money. That's why I was even against the citywide sales tax continuing, because we promised our citizens that that would sunset, and I was determined it would sunset, because to me it's like giving an alcoholic another drink. I'm not going to furnish them. They're going to learn to come off of it.
Thank you. Mr. Borner?
I'm going to have to agree with both of my competitors. Let's be honest, I don't think LGA cuts are a new thing. It's been around for years. In the city council meetings that I've sat in with this town and the other towns that I work, LGA has been a huge conversation. So I admit, I think I do agree. I think it should be something that is considered a bonus. You can't budget in what you know you don't have until you have it. So the way the city operates with LGA should be no different than the way I would operate with my own personal checkbook. So.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz?
Yes, LGA has been a big part of the city budget. It's slowly been getting weaned down. The city has reacted.
Mr. Schultz, I'm sorry, we are not hearing you.
No? Okay. The LGA has been a big part of the city budget, probably too big. And as you've seen, it's been weaned down and it's had quite a negative impact on property taxes. I think the city has reacted somewhat in the past. As the mayor said, the city budget has not increased substantially in the last 5 years. But we do have to build a contingency plan to follow up. If we keep losing LGA, we have to be prepared for that. And we can do that. We can keep planning and look at things where we can do more, find more efficiencies in government and reduce costs.
Thank you. Mr. Flemke?
You know, I think in a dream world, we could count on LGA, you know, on an annual basis, but, you know, I think we need to actually plan our budget, planning on not having the LGA and consider that more of a bonus, I think, at the end of the year.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham?
Well, first of all, we have suffered a lot of cuts, and we have not raised the taxes as it was stated. If you look at it from 2007 until 2012, we haven't increased the tax enough, or we have not increased the tax. So we had to make cuts. We did make cuts, and we will continue to make cuts. When we're looking at about a $2.5 million part of our budget is LGA, when we look at how to cut that out, you know, it's going to take some drastic either tax increases from our local citizens or some real drastic cuts in what we provide to the citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka?
Yeah, I gotta agree with every one of them. Don't need to raise our taxes, we just gotta see and see where it's filtered and make sure it's going to where it needs to be going and not somewhere that it's just gonna take it and not give anything back, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coons?
LGA was created back in the 70s as we sent tax dollars to the state of Minnesota, and they put together a formula to redistribute them dollars back into communities that didn't have the large tax bases and make everything a little bit equal throughout the state of Minnesota. I'm not ready to give up that fight at the state legislature yet to say we're going to do away with LGA. I think we need to continue to fight for those dollars that we send to the state, and we need to get some of those back returned to us. If we were going to reduce our budget, that's 20% levy increase that we would have to go in order to make up that $2 million. I would not ever try and do a 20% levy increase. I think we need to tackle that issue. We're going to have to do it with public input.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz, we'll begin the next question with you. And going on, this is a question from the audience about other possible ways for the city to raise money. Is a half-cent sales tax in the mix to pay for projects? And if so, what projects? Mr. Schultz?
Well, I don't think we can discount any sources of revenue, and sales tax is a source of revenue. Sales tax is kind of a special item. It has to be used for items that have regional impact on the area. We can't just say we want to fix our streets and have a sales tax for that. But before we even got to that point on the sales tax, I think we have to find out what that project is and really get the community involved. I know the last time this was tried, I don't know that the community bought into the whole project and it failed. So yes, sales tax is a source of revenue. It's for certain needs, and it has to be one the community can all get behind.
Thank you. Mr. Flemke?
I guess the nice thing about a sales tax increase is everyone will get a chance to vote on it. You know, if it's a particular project that everybody is very passionate about, then they would have the opportunity to either vote yes or no about on, and, you know, I guess I would support it if it was the right project.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham?
First of all, the last sales tax that we did have has sunsetted. We are no longer paying for that because it did reach its, the amount that it was designated to be paid for. Again, when we look at sales tax or a 0.5% sales tax, we have to look at what's better for the community. This is an amenity. It is not something that's going to cover our regular funds or our regular budget. And with that, we have to look at what and get public input that would be accepted by the general public to look at the projects that we would be looking at.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka?
Yeah, that should be up to vote. If we can see right in front of us where that 0.5% is going and how far in the future it's going, I agree with it, but other than that, no way.
Thank you. Mr. Coons?
I think the last 0.5-cent sales tax brought some real benefits to our community. It also gave us an idea of what that 0.5-cent sales tax would do to our businesses and to our auto dealerships, and I think it was well received after we got going through the process. I think one of the mistakes we made is we didn't do like Rochester. Rochester put together a task force and a committee and went to the public looking for ideas and information as to what would benefit the community. I think the last sales tax we did it through more local government than we did through community involvement. So I would support a local sales tax, but I would ask for community involvement to have community buy-in.
Thank you. Mr. Rainey?
I can't come out and state that I would support a 0.5-cent sales tax without knowing what the 0.5-cent sales tax was going to go for. You'd have to vote on it on its merit. 0.5-cent sales tax has to be regional in nature, okay? That sounds real good, but let's be real specific about what that is. If it's regional in nature, will it help us in our restaurants, in our hotels? Will it bring money into downtown Owatonna? In order to be successful, sales tax, that has to be a regional impact and a local impact in regards to where that tax money has been taken from.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson?
It was interesting when that 0.5-cent sales tax passed here, it was cleverly worded in 3 portions. And the public got to choose between 1, 2, and 3 uses for that sales tax. They approved 2 uses, the 3rd one they rejected. And I knew that it didn't matter if they got 1 of the 3, they were going to use the money the way they wanted to. And as I recall, the one that was rejected was to do with more trails. And we ended up with trails. So I was very disappointed. That's why I just plain want to wean the city off of another revenue stream, which I don't think they need.
Thank you. Mr. Borner?
Here's where I see democracy in action and democracy at its best, because at that point we get to bring that information to you. Again, going back to when I sat down here initially and told you about myself, as a 4th Ward council member, it's up to us to go to you in that ward and then listen to the community. So not only do we get to listen as your councilman, but we also get to see that democracy in action and give it to you in the community and put it up to your votes. I agree with the table. I think it's a good way, but I think you first have to look at the project and talk to the people and see if that's something that's gonna help the city of Owatonna.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham, we're going to begin the next question with you. How do you promote Owatonna, and what is your plan to bring new jobs to our city? Mr. Abraham.
Thank you. I promote Owatonna in any possible way I can. No matter who I'm talking to, I promote Owatonna as one of the best communities to live in. As far as bringing new jobs into the community, we do have a organization with the chamber, the city, and the incubator that has done an excellent job in the past. I want to compliment them on what they've done, and I hope to work with them in the future on new projects, whoever they may be.
Thank you. Mr. Flemke.
As a business owner, I'm a Owatonna Chamber of Commerce member. I think they do a great job of attracting, new business. That's, I guess, kind of their official capacity. And I think, we need to continue to work with them, to draw new business and, new people to Owatonna.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz.
Well, first off, we have to all remember, we're salesmen for Owatonna. Every one of us in this room has to be out selling Owatonna. That's number one job. I think a good way to promote Owatonna, and we have the tools in place, we just have to expand them a little bit, especially with the Chamber of Commerce. They do a good job, and we need to collaborate, I think, a little more with the city. We have an good economic development program within the city. Get those working together, get out there, let the state and the local area, or the upper Midwest here, know that Owatonna is available and ready to bring new industry in. We have a beautiful industrial park. It's being expanded with the new Highway 14 going to the west. We have to keep the pressure on to get Highway 14 to the east done. And if we all work together, we can build Owatonna.
Thank you. Mr. Borner.
In regards to promoting Owatonna, I think I do that most days of my life with my 3 kids involved in many different activities, and mostly all sponsored by the city of Owatonna in some way, shape, or form. Again, my wife working right downtown for 12 years, shopping locally, giving to a number of different charities, and also spending a lot of time in the wonderful parks that Owatonna does have. In regards to bringing new jobs, I think it's time to work with the existing businesses to see what they need. I know some of the businesses I've talked to, again, the money comes up, the taxes, and the other things they pay in expenses just to be where they're at. And again, look at new businesses and what they need from the city of Owatonna to come here and station.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
A few years ago, I went out and talked to the owner of the movie theater, and he showed me what it would cost them for taxes if they were in the Twin Cities suburb. And the taxes here were higher than they were in Edina and other suburbs. And to me, I think some of the best things we could do to recruit people here would be to hold those taxes down. I think that would make a level playing field and make everyone feel like this was a community where they could come in and make a business go. And I just feel like that would welcome everyone in here instead of having to pay something that they can't afford to pay. So as you can see, I'm a fiscal hawk, I'm conservative. I would be watching very closely so that we can make a level playing field for all business.
Thank you. Mr. Rainey.
Well, folks, I'm here to tell you that promoting the city of Owatonna is an easy task. When you go out of town, you talk to people, ask where you're from, and you say Owatonna, right away you can see from their faces the reaction. How do they do it? Why is Owatonna so much nicer? It's because we give a darn in this community. People really work together to make this a great community. In regards to new jobs, Greg Kruschke, he's a community development specialist for Owatonna. Greg has got some great ideas. He came on board last year. He is working closely with the Chamber of Commerce. He is constantly recruiting businesses to come and look at Owatonna. We can't just bring them here. We need to bring them here to look at our community, show what we have to offer. This is a very, very good community in which to.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Coombs.
Our economic development team is made up of Partners for Economic Development, which I sit on. I think location is a key issue, and also reputation and connections are the next key issue. Example with Chart Communications is I received a call on Monday saying, can you put a team together on Tuesday? We want to come down and look at that building. So being able to react in a fast manner is very, very important. If you have a company coming from out of state, and if you can call upon the governor to call that company to encourage them to take a look at Owatonna and into this community, it is very, very important and really has a huge impact on the companies that they're looking for. not uncommon for me to continue on writing letters and trying to recruit companies to our community.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka?
Yeah, we don't have to really support the new ones as we do the existing ones. It is all about location. Look what happened to the old Walmart, that's still empty. Now we're gonna have a second, empty Walmart, because they're gonna have to move out to the new 14, 'cause that's where the traffic is. You gotta go where it's accessible, so, we need to promote the businesses that are already here.
Thank you very much. We're going to take just a brief break, candidates, how about that? The question then, the final question of the day is, what is your vision for our city? Mr. Coons.
My vision for our city is that in the next 10 years, we'll be at 30,000. We have a great Christian community. I want to continue to see that grow. I just think that we are right on the borderlines of some great expansions, and I think in the next 10 years we'll see that. With Walser Chevrolet coming along Interstate 35, it revitalizes that area again, so I will continue to see growth continue to grow in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka.
I'm not really seeing any vision just yet. We're gonna have to see what happens with, like I said, with the money filtering problem that we already have, and just work through them issues already at hand before we go on any farther.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham.
I see a vision of, as Tom had said, about 30,000 people. I also see a vision of Highway 14 completed to Dodge Center. I see another vision of Maple Creek and Three River being fixed so that we don't have the flooding in our community. You know, I could go on and on about the different visions that I see, but those are some of those that I really see as a high priority.
Thank you. Mr. Flemke.
I guess the vision I see for Owatonna is, fresh, new, vibrant community. We need to attract, obviously, new business, like I've said many times. You drive to the bigger towns around us, and there's always, new opportunities, new place to try, and whether it's a retail store or a restaurant, and I think that would definitely help Owatonna grow as a community.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz.
Well, I see a great, vibrant vision for the city of Owatonna. This little recession we're in now isn't going to last forever. And when it turns a corner, we're going to see an explosion in Owatonna. We are in a unique location. We have a transportation hub. We have a industrial park with infrastructure in place, and it's just going to grow. Owatonna has that unique entrepreneurial spirit, and I think it's waned a little bit in the last few years, but I think it can come back. I do whatever we can to bring that spirit back, because I can see Owatonna just growing, and it would just be an excellent, excellent place to live. I plan on staying here. I know my kids and hopefully my grandchildren plan on staying here, so I want to do whatever we can to make sure it stays vibrant.
Thank you. Mr. Porner.
I as well see in front of me an awesome community, wonderful, vibrant community, and I do see the economy making a turn for the best all around. And we can see, if you look close enough, you can see that today. I see a wonderful community. I would agree the 30,000 population just expands our tax base there, gives us more opportunity to do some things that maybe we want to do and need to get done. I see more business and business growth, including new business and the businesses we have currently. What I definitely see and hope to see is the community get involved. So I'll make them all feel that they have a voice, and I hope to be that voice.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
We're talking of economic growth and development, and we are expanding out on our sites. I know this summer I went to the John Deere new building, and I thought, wow, we're way out here now. But the one thing we really have to take into consideration as we expand and get so much wider, we're also going to have to do some infrastructure things that are going to be very costly. I can see at a time where we maybe need to have a fire hall substation on the north side of town because our town is all blowing out in that direction. And then I think too, can our wastewater treatment possibly handle all that we have even now? And if we keep growing and don't take into consideration the infrastructure costs that go with the growth, I think we're making a mistake because we do have to bump up our infrastructure. And I think a lot of our infrastructure is so old, it needs replacing, and that's going to be a very, very costly thing. So I think we better think along with growth, we've got infrastructure needs that are going to tag along, and we have to deal with those too.
Thank you. Mr. Rainey.
My vision for the city. First, in order to have a vision, you have to look at where you were. People like Mr. Starman way back, Ted Ringhofer, talk about someone that had vision. You look at the industrial park, that wouldn't be there without that vision. According to the Highway 14 information packet, they expect Owatonna to increase by 16% in the next 10 years. My vision is that we continue to keep this a strong community where people care about each other, they work together. There will be issues. Let's solve the issues together. Let's make sure that we are doing what is right for Owatonna.
Thank you. Candidates, we have come to the time for our closing statement. Now, I would remind you, you have a little more time on the closing statement. In fact, you have 2 minutes for each candidate to make your closing statement to our audience. Again, we would like to thank the audience for being here with us today, and we would remind you that this is going to be on our website at the People's Press, www.owatonna.com. That will be a little later on this afternoon. It takes a little while to get it uploaded, but we do encourage you to go back and to encourage your friends as well to see this on our website. So we will begin with the closing statements. Mr. Rainey, we will begin with you and work our way this direction. Mr. Rainey.
The decisions that the City Council make have a direct impact on our current and our future citizens. In order to prepare to represent our community as a council member, I have spent the last 6 weeks meeting individually with the department heads within the city government. Together we discussed past, current, and future budgets. We also talked about future capital improvement needs. I have also sat in on every department 2013 budget meeting with the City Council. There will be a certain learning curve no matter who is elected to represent you. By meeting with the department heads and getting a better understanding of how each department operates, it will greatly assist me in how best to make my voting decisions for the good of the community. While I may not vote the way that each person in the community agrees with, I would hope that they would understand and respect that I have voted only after proper evaluation of the proposal and have determined what is the best interest for Owatonna as a whole. Being a council member is a serious responsibility. It is not one that I take lightly. As your council member, I will commit even more time so that our community has a strong representation. I will continue to communicate with department heads, making sure that as your tax dollars are being spent, they're being spent wisely. It is important that we continue to offer high-quality levels of our core safety services. As budgets continue to reduce, we must make sure that our infrastructure remains strong. I would appreciate your support and vote in our election in November. I look forward to working extremely hard for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
Well, I didn't script any type of answer, but I just feel like everybody here knows that when I dig into something, I really dig into it. When I get my facts and figures, you can take them to the bank. I am going to absolutely read my packets and be informed of what's in them. There have been times in the past when it was obvious to me that a certain city council member or another haven't even opened their packet. And I think you deserve people that will do their homework, do their research, and that care enough to take this job very, very seriously, because it has an effect on the bottom line for every citizen living here. So you can trust that I am going to dig and research and do my homework, and I want to do the very best for you that can possibly be done. and I'll give it my all.
Thank you. Mr. Borner?
Well, I as well did not have a script to read you, so I'll be right up front and honest with you. It was just before the closing of the election seats that were open that I decided to even put my name in the hat. The number one reason I did that was because I wanted to give people a choice, and back when I put my name in there was only one choice. And I maybe disagree or maybe not disagree with my opponents, but I wanted to give people a choice, and this was my way of giving back to the community that's given me so much. So for those of you in the audience that may know me or may know me a little bit, I again am not one to do anything halfway. So my promise to you and my promise to the Fourth Ward would be to put my heart and soul into this and to represent them in the best way I know how.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz?
Well, I do have a script because I like to work with a plan.
Mr. Schultz, we're having trouble hearing you. And that was a good line. You might want to say it again.
I do have a script because I like to work with a plan. And early on in this process, I was asked, why in the world would I want to be on the city council? Well, I do have a few reasons. My family's been in Owatonna for generations, and I see them being here for many more. I want Owatonna to be a good place to live and prosper for my children and grandchildren. I bring over 30 years of business experience to the city council, and as I stated earlier, I have a few important areas I think we need to address in the future. A good working budget is integral to a fiscally sound city. It has to involve transparency and a direction for the council to make it efficient. Continuing to embrace the lean process will make the budget more efficient and provide the services needed. My over 30 years of business experience in changing economic climates have taught me budget making skills, how to meet payrolls, and how to make the whole budget process work. Economic development is crucial to our continued success. Now is the time to make sure we are ready to compete for new industry. Make sure we have land available and a good infrastructure to attract new businesses. Use the tools we have to bring new jobs to Owatonna, and of course, keep the pressure on to complete Highway 14. Good growth increases the tax base, and with good city management, actually lowers new taxes. My years in the development business give me many of the skills to accomplish these tasks. Most importantly, the city council's main function is long-range planning. Where do we see Owatonna in a year, 3 years, 10 years, even 30 years? We have to work on that now because the decisions we make now will impact us for generations to come. I know what it means to make long-range plans, review them, and make necessary changes to keep the plan current. For those of you who know me, know of my commitment to Owatonna. My investment of time, effort, and resources in Owatonna make me uniquely qualified to tackle the issues that now make Owatonna a great place to live and work, and grow that entrepreneurial spirit we are so proud of. I ask for your vote on November 6th to keep me as your second ward council person for the next 4
Thank you,
years.
sir. Thank you. Mr. Flemke?
Owatonna is a great town because of the vision our founding fathers had, and I think right now Owatonna is kind of growing stagnant. Obviously we're faced with new challenges, to try to build our businesses in the current economy, and I think that in itself should be your reason to vote for me, just because of the fact that I did start a business in challenging times. And I'm fighting to grow the business, and as well I'd like to fight to grow this town, work at decreasing our costs, increasing our revenue, and I just want to reiterate that I do have a passion for Owatonna, and I want to make this a great town.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham?
Thank you. Again, I want to thank you and the rest of the staff for putting this thing on, but I have been part of the council for many years now. I've seen some of the successes. I've been part of the successes that we've had. We've had some issues that we've dealt with over the years, some very controversial, some not. But my goal is that I would like to continue with it, to see some of these that we've started be completed and become successful. I have a dedication to this community. One of the things I'm very proud of is my attendance. I have not really missed a meeting in the last 10 years. With that being said, I've also studied for those meetings. so that I'm prepared when I come to the meetings to know what I am talking about, what other people are talking about, and how we can go about getting things accomplished. And working together is one of the big things that I'm proud of. So with that, I do ask for your support for the next, at the next election. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spatanka.
Yeah, that, completing the Highway 14 was all in well, but it's just another excuse to leave your cruise on at 70 miles an hour as you go by and don't stop. And now there's another reason to go east and west and set your cruise at 65 and don't stop. So as far as the city growing, it's going to be a long ways out there, because until the businesses start popping up along the interstate. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coons.
I believe that the mayor is really one of the salespeople for our community, and being retired gives me the opportunity to be involved in a lot of different things. Whether it's you go at school at 8:30 in the morning, do the oath of office for student council, or you go at noon and talk to service groups selling Owatonna, or you go to the state and lobby for local government aid, Highway 14, economic development funds, or if you go to the federal government and look for flood relief, FEMA, and Highway 14 stuff, it all takes time, and it all means that you need to build connections to be able to do that. I think over the last 9 years that I've been mayor, we've seen some great growth in our community. We've seen Cybex, which is thinking about building in Owatonna or out on the East Coast, and with our economic development team, we were able to make that a reality. Chart Industry is another one. Bremer Bank is another one. So we continue to see growth within Owatonna, and I will continue to be dedicated over the next 4 years to try and increase that growth and further grow it for our community.
Thank you, and thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. John Mueller-Wiley.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I think it's time for a few thanks here. I want to thank Jeffrey Jackson and Ron Ensley of the Owatonna People's Press, and Brad Meyer and Katie Nelson of the Owatonna Area Chamber of Commerce, and all of the Rotarians here and not present for making this possible. And also a great thank you to you candidates for putting yourselves out on the line, and we really appreciate that. We will be holding 2 more forums. October 15th, which is next week, next Monday, the state Senate and state representative candidates will be here. And on October 22nd, 2 weeks from today, county commissioners will be here from districts 2, 3, 4, and 5. We appreciate your coming. You're welcome here anytime, any Monday noon. We'd appreciate anyone stopping in for a visit to our Rotary Club. Thank you all very much. The meeting is adjourned.